So, once again, we're about to get into the reading of Jericho Sunfire, another excerpt here from the book, A Story of a Breatharian Warrior. So thank you for listening. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and your decision to take more care of your body is no chance thing. In fact, if you have this book in your hand, then you are probably being guided to take action and make change. I don't promote any one diet or lifestyle because I believe that each lifestyle serves its own purpose as time goes by. I'm a very strong believer in leaving room for change or progress because after all, change and progress is what we are here for. I know how hard it is to transition to another lifestyle, how hard transitioning can be. And I think that everybody needs to start somewhere. And I believe that if anybody is really serious about taking care of their health, then transitioning off of cooked and processed foods should be the place to start. What you do after that is your personal choice. For me, getting off of cooked food was pretty much the main goal from day one. But I found myself messing up so many times and quitting more times than I care to remember. Can you relate? I knew it was all a matter of getting control of my mind back because I realized that because of cooked food, my mind really wasn't mine to control in the first place. It was weird seeing this, seeing my mind being altered by my addiction to the pleasure of eating cooked food. Cooked food is a drug, period. You get off of it like a drug. Yeah, I know I sound like a jerk, but I can say what I say because I've been there and lived it, and it was hell. I may sound arrogant, but I've earned the right to have a big mouth because I put in the work to get to the other side. Giving up cooked food is not meant to be easy. If it was, the food industry would be bankrupt and you'd be healthy, and that's not good for business. At the end of the day, in my opinion, the supermarket is nothing but a glorified crack house, and you are the crack addicts. Don't even bother bringing up organics because organic standards weren't that great in the first place. How can it be? When we have polluted air, acid rain, and crap in the water supply, do the research. As I will go into more detail later, I had such a bad time trying to quit cooked food, and the worst thing was that the cooked food I was running back to was dead. But at least I learned that I wasn't running back to it because I needed nutrition. That lie went out the window pretty soon, I can tell you that. It was plain and simple. I was running back to cooked food because I was addicted to it, and I needed to get my next fix. To me, living on lifeless, man-made cooked food is evidence that Breatharianism is very possible and proof that the body can function for years in spite of cooked food and not because of it. I'm always amazed at how completely unaware people are of the damage they are doing to their bodies by polluting themselves with cooked foods. People don't even know why they eat what they eat. All they know is that it tastes good. I remember, before I started my journey, how totally blind I was to myself, to the junk I was eating and the damage being done. Even when I got sick with colds and flus on a regular basis, I never woke up and made the connection. But I was very lucky. I probably sensed the warnings earlier than most and did something about them. What seems like a clear health risk to me wouldn't even register to anybody else as a blip on the health radar. Why is this? Well, I believe that I had spiritual help, plus the unconsciousness stems from childhood. I feel that we are basically force-fed and conditioned to eat from the time we are in the womb, and especially when we get off of breast milk. For most children, a natural diet is not an option. The choice is already made for them, and it's straight onto the processed man-made foods that only serve to desensitize and stop any chance of the body actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. This is why people are in such disbelief when it comes to Breatharianism or anything to do with not ingesting processed man-made foods. I can definitely relate to that. I was pretty much raised on everything. The fear and disbelief is there because we are effectively stopping the body from doing its job. We are missing out on experiencing what the true purpose of the body is. We grow up thinking that the body is just a processing plant designed to process and eliminate waste from ice cream, soy, pizza, burgers, fast food, etc., etc. When in fact, it is the complete opposite. Even when the body becomes out of shape and distorted, it still doesn't faze people. They will see a man with a seriously bloated stomach hanging well over his belt buckle and will think nothing of it. To them, it is such a normal thing. And to associate that with poor eating habits just doesn't cross their minds. And the worst thing for me is that I cannot tell them anything different from what they already think they know, because if it came from me, it would just be ignored. And I would just be seen as an extremist health nut, talking jibber jabber. But it's funny how when you talk about not eating food, all the sick and overweight people become instant dietitians. In my personal opinion, getting off of cooked food and transitioning even to Breatharianism is the very first initiation to reaching higher levels of consciousness and is an extremely important and even sacred spiritual act that should be held in the highest regard. I'm of the opinion that it's not the raw foods that heal you. It is getting off of cooked food that heals. For me, it's great to see new raw folks because they are so enthusiastic and wrapped up in the food and being healthy. They wear t-shirts with fruits on them. People that go on the online space in raw food forums name themselves after fruits. They even want to know what your favorite fruits are and what fruits you've eaten that day. At the potlucks, they get to talk about their favorite food and how to overcome various challenges. I love it. It's like seeing people with that new love feeling. You know, the kind where you meet someone new and you can't stop talking about them, and everybody else is getting sick of it, but you just don't care. You just carry on anyway. But with anything good, you must experience the bad. And the bad, in my opinion, isn't the detox. It isn't the well-meaning friends and family members. And it's not even mainstream society. It's you. Yes, you. I say this because all your success depends on how you deal with the challenges that going and getting off of cooked food brings. And the challenges will come thick and fast from all directions. Trust me on that. You'll be like that regular person that sets off to find the Holy Grail and overcomes almighty obstacles and comes back a hardened warrior. All right, enough of the dramatics. What's my point, you may be asking? My point is that getting off cooked food and going fruitarian is no joke. It's extremely hard to do properly and to get through to the other side, and unfortunately, ordinary efforts just won't do. You have to be exceptional because you have to be able to see past the illusions of your own addicted mind and be able to stick to the goals that you originally had in mind when you first started. Unfortunately, most people fall victim to their own addicted thoughts, as if under control of a hypnotist. They eventually forget the very reason why they started on the road to healing. They lose focus. They quit and go back to cooked foods. I found that people make too much of a fuss about going fruitarian. It's still all about eating to them. Trying to figure out what to or what not to put inside their gut is still where they feel the solution lies. But to me, it's getting off the cooked food that should be the ultimate focus. Once you've mastered that, the world is your oyster. But I've seen it time and time again. Quitting cooked food can drive people crazy. It can have the strongest, most hardcore giving up the fruitarian path and singing its praises, insisting eating fruits made them sick. It just goes to show how much of a mind-altering drug cooked food really is. Yes, I said drug. Nobody thinks of cooked food as a drug, and I think that this is actually part of the problem. It says, why struggle and be unhappy trying to be healthy when you can come back to enjoying life with me? But the sad fact is that they were already depressed and falling apart on cooked food, and that's why they went fruitarian in the first place. And trust me, after 3 weeks eating cooked foods, the novelty begins to wear off. The aches and pains will be setting back in, and they will be coming back to raw foods with their tails between their legs. A funny thing I've seen too is that people that once sprang up out of nowhere, singing your praises, calling you friend, and wanting your support while they were enthusiastic about fruitarianism, suddenly vanish into thin air and don't want to know you or anything connected to the fruitarian lifestyle once they go back to cooked food. And all of a sudden, going fruitarian isn't so healthy, or that's the justification they use for quitting. At the end of the day, this isn't a game for chumps. The problem is that you don't know cooked food has drug-like qualities till you try to get off of it. When we looked at cooked foods, the last thing we think of is that it's a slow killer. We're brought up to believe that food is what builds us up, gives us our strength and vitality. Well, unfortunately, even when it comes down to health, people would rather overlook the fact that eventually cooked food blocks up our digestive system, bloats us up like balloons. But people don't see the effects that come with eating processed man-made foods as harmful and don't want to be told what to do or how to eat. Yeah, I remember this hits home because when I went after my longest dry fast and when I was living on liquids, I remember when I went back to even eating like cooked tomato soup, like cooked soups and different condensed soups, my body started showing me immediately what I no longer needed. I mean, my stomach just felt so gassy. I felt bloated. I felt nauseous. My feet were like swelling up. I was getting edema in my feet. They were just swelling. I could hardly press the gas pedal in my car. I was like straining. It was painful to press the gas and the brake pedal in my car. Like my feet were just swelled up in my sandals. Like my sandals were like stretched to capacity because my feet were so swollen from like eating cooked tomato soup. I was like, what is going on? This never happened before. Or so I thought. And it was showing me like the levels of inflammation and just, I mean, it was showing me the body is the greatest accountability partner. It shows you what you don't need in your life. I just don't get it. I've known people that are dying from cancer, but will not quit smoking. I've known people that are dying from liver damage, but will not stop drinking alcohol or taking hard drugs. I can understand that nobody wants some stranger telling them that the way that they, their family, and everybody they know have been living is all wrong. I'm sure I'd be defensive too if someone said that about me and my lifestyle. That's why the majority of people that stay raw are people that are having great success with curing themselves of illness, or people that are getting active, in shape, and mentally strong enough to ignore the fears and negativity of others. Yeah, a lot of the interviews that I've had with people who have gone to raw living foods and who have gotten off of cooked foods, a lot of the time the people that stay in that new lifestyle are people that have cured chronic disease, ailments, illnesses, like life-threatening stuff. And it's like inspiration wasn't enough. They needed desperation to finally make a transition and a lifelong change. It's a real shame that it usually takes a serious illness to wake some people up, but such is the addicted nature of our society. We are raised to think that we can eat whatever we want, and there are no consequences. Same here. As far as the average Joe or Jane knows, we eat cooked food and it simply comes out the other end, and we view getting sick as a totally unrelated issue. In fact, many of us think that we get sick only because of a change in the weather or old age. It is hard to try to raise the awareness about the dangers of cooked foods because people are so defensive and just don't want to think that after all this time, by choosing to eat cooked food, they have in fact been committing slow suicide, and that their choices could be responsible for causing damage to their own and the health of their loved ones, especially if there's children involved. It's embarrassing for people to think that they have been fooled by the food industry into thinking that cooked food is anything but healthy and nutritious. And if there's one thing that I've learned, is that cooked food never gives anything. It always takes away. So while they may be thinking that they are getting away with it so far, it's going to bring them down. Maybe not now or tomorrow, but it will bring them down slowly but surely and way before their time. So as you can imagine, when a guy like me starts foaming out the mouth about the dangers of cooked foods, it doesn't take long before 1,000,001 people, 1,000,001 angry people rush to defend their position on why eating cooked foods and why cooked food is the natural food for humans. Even if they know that what I'm saying makes perfect sense, just the mere thought, giving up their cooked foods, strikes fear right down to their very core. Just like it would if you told an alcoholic, a smoker, or drug addict to immediately quit their drug of choice. One of the realities I face now as a parent is that it's like I'm always on the outside looking in, and I get to see how humans have strayed so far from our original state that we can eat the baked, boiled, fried body parts of dead animals, heavily seasoned in salt, sugar, sauces, and spices. Consume vast amounts of dairy products, pizzas, burgers, fried chicken, condiments, candies, ice creams with crazy flavors, washing it all down with sodas, concentrated fruit juices, cow's milk, etc. And think that this is all perfectly normal. But check this out. Here comes the funny part. We even manufacture and duplicate fake versions of all the above that is supposed to be so unhealthy so that vegans don't miss out on destroying their bodies and health too. And vegans are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. Think about it. If meat is supposed to be so bad, why would you want to eat a fake version of it? Or if the above foods are so unhealthy, why make them in the first place? All you have to do is go into any supermarket and you'll see that many people buying old food wrapped up, canned, or packaged in some kind of plastic container. And if you were to stop any one of those people and ask them how old the item was or when it was made, they would not have a clue. But wait, it gets worse. One of the most alarming products of all in some of these stores are in the children's birthday cakes. Those things are like a chemical dump. They almost look plastic, and I dare you to read the ingredients list. I dare you. It is as long as the book War and Peace, full of words you can't even say properly. And it's so obvious that it is just jam-packed full of sugar and chemicals, artificial flavorings. But does this stop people from feeding it to their children? Nope. Well, I'm not here to say that everyone should suddenly stop eating cooked foods, and I'm not going to act as if I don't know the pleasures of eating cooked foods either. Because believe me, I've had all the pizzas, the hamburgers, the ice creams, fast foods, slow foods, whole foods, any foods. I always loved cooked foods. One of the perks of eating cooked foods is that it briefly satisfied a lot of my emotional anxieties. If I was stressed, I ate cooked food. If I was upset, I ate cooked food. If I was happy, I ate cooked food. And it seems that you also have certain food outlets to go to for certain emotions and celebrations as well. So food was a huge comforter for me, and I loved the gratification and overall numb feeling it would bring. I always felt like I was big and strong on cooked foods, but that was just a false sense of security. So eating fruits was never an option. I just never wanted it and never ate it. The food industry was always doing a good job making sure people like me kept coming back for more of their products. My issue is that eating cooked food has long-term consequences that we need to be aware of. Now, I just want to pause right here real quick just to resonate and reflect, because I definitely connect with everything that the brother Jericho Sunfire here is saying, especially even with eating fruits not being something that he was even attuned to. You know, people ask me, hey, were you ever fruitarian? And I'm like, no, I was never fruitarian. I wasn't even raw vegan. I jumped straight from like eating everything, you know, mainly like I jumped straight from carnivorism and vegetarian all the way into liquidarian. You know, I jumped clean over everything. And it was a mixture of inspiration and desperation for me at the time, because I just wanted a change in my life. But everything that he's saying about these cooked foods, I was on all of that. You know, I was eating all the cereals as well. You know, I look at the cereal boxes today, I look at all the chemicals in there, I'm like, wow. Like I was ingesting this on a daily basis. The Frosted Flakes, the Fruity Loops, the Lucky Charms. And when I look at the ramen noodles, I look at the chemicals in there and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I survived off of years of this. My body can handle anything. If I handled this for years, I can handle anything. Like radioactive waste in my body is crazy. And I was, nuking it in the microwave and just heating it up every day, eating it every day. And just like he said, thinking that there were no consequences. Just thinking, oh, I'm good. It's cheap. And somebody asked me, they said, it's not that that healthy food is so expensive. That's not the question. We should be asking, why is the toxic food so cheap? Not why healthy food is so expensive. Why is toxic food so cheap? That's what we should be asking, Jerome. And I was like, that is very interesting. Like, why can I go to McDonald's and get $1, on the dollar menu, the Happy Meal, right? At McDonald's. Why I can get a double cheeseburger, supersized fries, a Diet Coke, or why can I get this for under $10? But then I feel like it's a struggle or I'm hurting my pockets to eat raw vegan or what have you. But, these were all things that I was under the programming, and I satisfied a lot of my emotional anxieties as well with food. I would reward myself. I would congratulate myself, take myself out to Wingstop, Popeyes, and different places, Chinese takeout, Chinese buffets, all you can eat, right? All you can eat. As much as you can pack in. And the bathroom would be my friend. I'd be in the restroom all night long, constipated. But it never seemed like an issue. It just felt normal. Because everyone that was living around me was living that same lifestyle. So it's just normal. And I never thought twice about it. So, I was raised on hot dogs, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, all of that stuff. And just like he's saying with the condiments and everything, the taste, the flavors, the textures, it was never enough. The condiments, they called us the ketchup family. I was like the ketchup king. And my mother was the ketchup queen. I was raised primarily by my mother. And we took pride in it. We took pride in these condiments, these ketchup, these flavorings, these mustards, these mayonnaises, right? I would put ketchup on rice. I would put ketchup on eggs. I would put ketchup on macaroni and cheese. I would put ketchup on everything. It wasn't enough. It was bland without it. Can you imagine? It was bland without ketchup. I couldn't taste it. Even my family members thought I was crazy at the amount of ketchup I was putting on my food. They thought I was crazy. I thought it was normal. Now, today, I don't eat any of it, and they still think I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? So, it was never enough, especially with the hot sauce, the vinegar. Jesus Christ. You could not ask me to stop. The Louisiana, the Texas Pete. I was dumping it. I was just like saturating my food. You couldn't even see the food. It was so drenched in the hot sauce, you couldn't see it. And that was my stomach. Like, the state of my stomach, I can only imagine. If somebody took a camera, a microscopic, if somebody took a peek inside my colon, my intestines, I wonder what you would have seen years ago. I can only imagine. But let's not digress. I believe that escapism, taste, and addiction, and not nutritional need, is the reason why people eat. I believe that back in the day, once we tasted sweet foods, whether they were raw or cooked, it was all over. Eating for pleasure took over. My belief is that the body is its own self-sustaining universe. And when you put any material, raw or uncooked, or raw or cooked, even water in your body, it can create an imbalance or ripple effect. It distracts the body from going about its daily business and adapting to whatever environment or needs you may have given it at any moment. I personally think that the only reason why you would even need to drink water is because you are eating solid foods, raw or cooked with taste. For instance, eating heavy fruits may cause you to overeat, or it may cause you to need extra liquid that you wouldn't have needed otherwise, especially if you're eating the heavier or drier fruits like bananas, avocado, etc. The body would have to deal with the cause of the food and the water you drink that is now probably overloading the system. Now, eating cooked food really throws off the system into chaos because it's also got the chemicals, the salts, the sugars, the fats, the MSG, and many other addictive ingredients on top of that. Cooked food uses the body resources to store. Remove it from the body, and it just throws everything out of whack. And it's not even mentioning constipation, etc. Basically, I believe that somehow, some way, we got into the habit of eating. I think that the process of cooking food was an early act of desperation or a complete accident. I mean, think about it. Who in their right mind would really go out of their way to catch an animal, skin it, prepare it, cook it, all with their bare hands, and then eat it with no salt, sugar, or spices, when they could easily pick a fruit off of a tree? Plus, I'd love to meet the first person that figured out that if they boiled rice, they could eat it. Well, that was then. This is now. Now we have man-made condiments. Man-made condiments, which allows us to eat anything we want, regardless of freshness, smell, or taste. So freshness doesn't even matter now, because we have condiments. Now we can just coat our food with it. In fact, I know people that are so addicted to condiments, they just cut out the middleman and eat spoonfuls of the stuff, which to me is crazy for anybody's standard. Now I want to take a pause here, and I want to talk about this just briefly because this hits home. When I was going liquid and I was getting off of, solid foods in general, there was a time that I went so far in that when I did go back and I just took a dab of hot sauce that I used to eat back in the day, and it was like I could finally taste, it was like I was tasting it for the very first time. It was like my body had become resensitized after years of being desensitized. And my tongue, my taste buds, I could taste every ingredient on the label. Like the salt, the vinegar, everything that was on the label of the hot sauce. I could taste all of it in one dab. And this is coming from somebody who, I used to eat hot wings for breakfast, literally for breakfast. And I remember one of the hot wings, one of my friends, my coworkers at the time, he took a dab. They were called Devil's Breath. And he just took a dab of the wings. They were a ghost pepper base with jalapeno and habanero flakes. This is what I was eating. He put it on his tongue. This was years ago. A tear came down his eye. I can't make this up. To this day, I'll never forget it. A tear came down his eye with one dab of what I was eating for breakfast. Now, when I went after my prolonged fast and I took a dab, that was when I finally tasted it for the first time, and I realized I was never tasting any of it. I was never even actually eating the food. I was eating my addiction. I was eating the flavor, right? And I remember that there was a portion of time when I started to go crazy, when I started binging on sauces, binging on ketchup sauce. Like, I remember just a dab at a time. It was like an addict. I felt like a full-blown addict. I would go back to the refrigerator, open it, take the ketchup, and I'll take a dab and put it on my tongue, and I would go back and I would take a dab, and I kept taking dabs until I cleared a whole bottle of ketchup, of Heinz ketchup, a whole bottle, bit by bit. And I was like, I couldn't control myself. I felt so out of control. I was like, I felt like I needed to check myself in somewhere. Like I needed to go to a rehabilitation clinic somewhere, right? That had never happened in all my years. It was only when I had gotten off of it that I went crazy. And that let me know something. Had I gotten adjusted to such a level of stimulation and sensation that I was numbed and dulled to the presence of this in my body. And when I reintroduced it back into my body and my body had to re-assimilate it back into its system, now I felt the drug-induced toxins once again. And it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I was looking around at everything differently. So it changed the way that I see everything. Have you ever been doing really good on your diet, only to go headlong into an uncontrollable cooked food binge that seemed to come out of nowhere? Or have you ever been fruitarian for some time, only to get stressed out, bored, happy, or angry about something, and then go headlong into an uncontrollable food binge, eating cooked food that again seemed to come out of nowhere? Well, don't worry, because it's happened to the best of us. But have you ever wondered why that happens? And exactly what comes over you to make you rebel in such a way that leaves you feeling sick, bloated, guilty, and mad at yourself for slipping back to doing something you knew you really didn't want to do? Now, on top of all of that, self-examination and questioning, you got to go through the never-ending fight to get back off of cooked foods. So why is it that when certain emotions come up, do we automatically resort to eating cooked food? Just automatically. For me, I learnt that I could do all the soul searching I wanted, but knowing the reasons why still didn't stop me from slipping up. I found that the easiest way to stop eating cooked food was to actually stop eating cooked food. I know that's way easier said than done, and I already know that the caving into cravings is a given at some point during your transition, but I'd like to expose you to this. Just in case you're brand spanking new to this battle, caving in to your cravings and binging on cooked foods solves nothing. You're still going to have the same problem you are stressed about long after you've binged on cooked food. If you're binging just because you believe you're addicted, then you are only keeping the cycle going by putting more and more of the foods you are addicted to inside your body. It is a sad cycle that can go on for years if you don't take strong action to change it. I always say to think of quitting cooked foods in the same way as quitting drugs, because that's the only way things make sense. Now, this reminds me of when a previous partner of mine, we were in a relationship and we were both on our own pranic journey. We had just come from a Breatharian retreat with Elitam in Sedona, Arizona. And we met up with Shayna Dean, the light being, in Sonoma County. And we also met up with Rocky Chari. And they were both on their Breatharian journey as well. Rocky, she hasn't had solid food for 6 years now. And Shayna Dean, I don't even know how long it's been since she had solid food. But they both gave us different advice. And this was after we had just come from a retreat, and we went up there to ask them, and just to meet them, really. And I remember Rocky was telling us, hey, have whatever you want. Pig out, have all the food that you want, because you never know, you might never go back to it again. Like there might be a grieving process. You might grieve the old version of you that used to eat those foods. So just eat till your heart's content, till you're done, and then just be done. Just be done with it. Like you stop playing with the toy, you get bored of it. And just finally move on with no complaints, no regrets, just move on. That was the advice she gave us. Shayna Dean gave us the completely opposite. She said, I don't think you want to do that. Because just like Jericho is saying here, she said, you're just keeping yourself in the cycle. Like you really don't know how mentally draining, emotionally taxing, keeping yourself in that cycle will be. To get yourself off of that cycle, it's a little bit more difficult than you think. Like, she was just kind of warning us, like fair warning, do what you want. But I don't suggest that you eat all of that stuff, And I see both sides of the fence. For Shayna Dean, I definitely see that it's like fighting a losing battle. It's like, it's trying to drive with the emergency brake on, right? You got all that toxicity, all those blockages in your body, and you're trying to go straight into breatharianism or straight into pranic living with all of that stuff on your system. And that's kind of like, you're just fighting the drug while being intoxicated, right? While being inebriated, surrounded by alcohol, you're just fighting it. But then I also understood Rocky, because what Rocky said, it actually made sense as well. And that actually is what we ended up doing. We ended up eating what we wanted, feeling the bloated sensations, feeling the nausea, feeling like, we don't want to do this again. And then the next day saying, okay, we're just going to be done. We're going to be done with it. And before the next day was over, we felt like the craving again. We wanted it again. Because if it's not in your body, it's not on your mind, right? Whatever I put in my body is now on my mind again. Now I have to let it go again. Now I have to close that door again. Once I've opened the door, now I have to close it. So both sides of the fence, I definitely see both sides. On the one hand, yeah, you don't want that in your system because you're just feeding the parasites, you're feeding all the organisms that are thriving, the breeding grounds that are thriving off of this stuff. The sticky substance that is just clogging up, the arteries and just gooing up and gunking up and clogging the pipes and really just not allowing you to even think straight or make better judgments. But on the other side, that childlike, the inner child that grew up on these things, that has memory attached to it, that has situations and circumstances attached to it, that has familial relationships attached to it, that has love attached to it, that has meaning attached to it, that has satiation and gratification and all of that sensation, like all of that is attached to food. And if you just kind of just try to quit cold turkey, as they say, there can be a big grieving process. It can be very, very tough to let go of the connection and go in a completely new direction. So before your body has that resurrection, right? Before you feel like you have a new body, it can be tough to let these things go. So that's why I advise people today, take it slow. Take it slow. You might not be an extremist like myself. I'm a Scorpio, we're extreme. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm extreme, and it sounds like Jericho Sunfire. Jericho Sunfire, it sounds like he's also extreme. He just said, you know what? I just never looked back, right? So if you're not extreme like that, definitely take it day by day. Take it slow, because you have no idea where you can go. But if you take it slow, it lets it be a flow journey and not a forced journey. More a relaxing journey, not a taxing journey. So that would be my advice. I'm not going to spend all this time bashing cooked foods, but there are a few elements that go towards our obsession with it that will show that there's so much more to this quitting thing than simple willpower and knowledge of guru secrets and guru programs. I know so many people that are highly educated when it comes to nutrition and the anatomy of the body, etc. And even know a bunch on how to go raw, but cannot implement what they know because they have a whole bunch of emotional attachments to cooked food. And sadly, most of us were born and bred on what? You guessed it, cooked foods. It is kind of like we were programmed by birth by our parents. Then as we got older, we trained ourselves and fine-tuned everything to suit our own particular tastes and emotions. Take for me, for instance, when I was sad, I stuffed myself with ice cream, fries, pizza, everything bad for you. When I was happy, I stuffed myself with ice cream, fries, pizza, and everything bad for you. When I was angry, I stuffed myself with ice cream, fries, and pizza. When I was bored, as comfort food, I stuffed myself with ice cream, fries, and pizza. Are you starting to see the pattern? Funny thing is, I never saw my eating habits as anything but normal when I was growing up. I just figured that I was one of those people that simply liked to eat. And in our society, with the group of people I called my buddies, that was a good thing. I would eat at every opportunity, but I never once associated eating as my way of escaping myself and all of my stresses until I got off of it. The great taste always masked the feeling and the fact that eating all that cooked food was totally and utterly pointless, and that all I was doing was filling up my poor stomach with garbage several times a day, day after day. I never once got any warnings from my body telling me to change my eating habits. I never got sick apart from the odd cold or flu now and again. When the weather got cold, in fact, when I got the colds and the flu, it was always the weather that got the blame, never the food. I was always so stuffed, I don't think I would have felt any warning signs if they got up and punched me in the gut. I never questioned anything because everything seemed so normal. Everybody did what I did. I'd go to the store and people were always buying and eating food. So it wasn't until my 20s that I started to pay the price. Just like everyone else, I must have missed the warning signs a mile by a mile because I fell apart pretty rapidly. I was pretty much full to the brim and I just could not eat another mouthful of food. See, for me, I used cooked food for escapism from life stresses, and it only worked for very brief periods, like 5 to 10 minutes. And as soon as the taste faded, I had to start all over again, but with sweeter, saltier, stronger tasting foods. At the time, I was so unconscious to this. Right, it's kind of progressive, kind of like a gateway drug. It just gets more and more, it has to be more and more stimulating. In fact, at times, when the taste faded, I simply added more condiments and carried on chowing down. It was like medication to me. But back then, I never once associated my eating habits with escapism. All I knew was that the food I was eating tasted pretty darn good and made me feel like I was somehow taking part in something special. It always seemed like a treat to buy something from the store to eat, especially if I was eating out with friends. I was always eating something. It took me a long time to come to the conclusion that even after all this eating, my problems, low self-esteem issues, bills, and other assorted stresses were still there and had not moved an inch the whole time. In fact, as I look back over the years, I've realized that at no point in time did comfort eating ever give me any real comfort or take care of any of the issues or stresses I ever had. So why on earth was I doing it? Why did I always choose to eat my way into oblivion rather than deal with those issues? Well, as you can imagine, After that revelation, I asked myself that question many times, and each time I drew a blank. The only thing I can think of is that I ate to forget. But at the same time, like I said before, everybody else was doing it too. You could go into any restaurant, fast food joint, and see people eating to forget, or eating because they had been programmed to suppress their emotions, and because you see everybody else doing it and having a great time. It becomes harder to see it for what it really is, and it wasn't until I went fruitarian that I started to see the wood for the trees. We'll go ahead and stop there. I think that was a good bit. All right. Blessings, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. You know, keep that grateful, thankful spirit. I trust that the rest of your life will be the best of your life. You know, take these things, take these words with you and just let them digest, let them process, and just kind of mold them over. Just let that seed be planted and understand, just like Jericho Sunfire was saying in this book here, you don't have to do everything all at once, but just to understand and ask yourself questions. Because it's only when we ask the question that we receive an answer. But if we never ask the question, the answer never arrives. So blessings to you. I trust you will thrive and not just survive, not just strive to stay alive. Realize that we have an endless supply, right? The prana and chi supply all that we need. We don't have to constantly feed, but as you proceed, just realize what you can retrieve, right? It honestly comes down to what you perceive, to what you believe. So blessings, less stressings to you. May all of life's chi be expressing in you. This has been Jerome Shaw, once again, host of the TOP, the Open Palm Podcast. You can find that wherever podcasts are played, any platform there, Spotify, Apple Music. And this will be on the playlist Pranic Pages on the YouTube channel. You can check that out there. For anyone wishing to learn more about the pranic lifestyle, Breatharianism, living on light, living without, living on less, you can check out the Patreon, and that's patreon.com/pranicpath. So blessings to you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everyone grabbing the books. Thank you for everyone taking a look and expanding themselves just on new information, spreading the word, spreading the vibration. And we'll take care. We'll see you soon. Stay in tune.